The room was deep, buried far beneath the Ural Mountains. It hummed with a low, constant energy. Rows of consoles stood like silent sentinels. Their screens glowed with an eerie green light. The air was cold, sterile, and heavy with unspoken tension. This was a place where the world's fate could be decided, not by men in grand halls, but by the quiet logic of circuits and wires. There were no windows to the outside world. There was only the hum of machinery, a mechanical heartbeat for a nation holding its breath. The men who worked here were shadows. They moved with purpose, their faces grim. They understood the gravity of their post. They were guardians of a terrible power, a power designed to outlive them all. This was the heart of Systema Perimeter. The West called it something else. They called it the dead man's hand. The name was chillingly accurate. It was a system built for the end of the world. It was designed to function when human command had ceased to exist. Imagine the silence after the first strike. Cities turned to ash, leaders gone, communication networks shattered into nothing. In that deafening void, this buried complex was designed to awaken. It was a final, automated scream of vengeance, a protocol to ensure that no one could win a nuclear war, only that everyone would lose together. The system was a testament to the paranoia of the age, a deep, abiding fear that drove nations to the brink. The system's logic was simple yet terrifying. It was always listening. It monitored a network of seismic, radiation, and air pressure sensors. It was searching for the telltale signs of a nuclear detonation on Soviet soil. It also listened for another, more important signal. It checked for a live connection to the Soviet General Staff. As long as that connection was active, the system remained dormant, a sleeping giant. But if the sensor screamed of attack and the line to command went silent, a new phase would begin. The system would assume the worst. It would assume that the human leadership was gone, that the nation was decapitated. This was the moment the dead man's hand would truly come alive. It would initiate a sequence that could not be stopped. It would bypass all normal chains of command. It would seize control of the nation's nuclear arsenal. It would launch a special command rocket. This rocket would fly high over the motherland. It would broadcast launch orders directly to the silos and submarines spread across the vast territory. It was a final defiant act, a ghost in the machine, given the keys to the apocalypse. The men in the bunker were merely its caretakers. They were maintaining a weapon that was designed to work without them, a weapon that would have the last word. The concept of the dead man's hand was born from a deep-seated fear. Soviet leaders in the 1970s and early 1980s were deeply worried. They feared a decapitation strike. This was a specific type of attack, a swift, surgical strike designed to eliminate the political and military leadership in Moscow. The United States was developing increasingly accurate missiles like the Pershing II, deployed in Europe. These weapons could reach Moscow in minutes. There would be no time to react, no time to deliberate, no time to order a counterattack. The entire chain of command could be wiped out before anyone knew what was happening. This was the nightmare that kept Soviet strategists awake at night. To counter this threat, they needed a solution. They needed a guarantee of retaliation. The system had to be automatic. It had to be unstoppable. It had to convince the enemy that even a successful first strike would not prevent their own destruction. This is the core principle of deterrence, the certainty of mutually assured destruction or MAD. The dead man's hand was the ultimate expression of this doctrine. It took the human element, with all its hesitation and fear, out of the final equation. It was a promise written in computer code and rocket fuel that vengeance would be delivered, no matter what. The system was never meant to be a first-strike weapon. It was a weapon of last resort. The creation of Perimeter was a closely guarded secret. It was one of the most sensitive projects of the entire Cold War. Engineers and scientists worked in isolated facilities. They were tasked with building a system that was both complex and completely reliable. It had to be immune to false alarms. It had to withstand the electromagnetic pulse of a nuclear blast. It had to make the most important decision in human history without any human input. The technical challenges were immense, but the strategic imperative was even greater. The survival of the state, in their view, depended on its success. It was a dark and desperate gamble, a technological solution to a political problem. The system was declared operational in the mid-1980s. Its existence remained a mystery to the West for years. It sat there, hidden deep underground, listening, a silent arbiter of the world's fate. It represented a new level of automation in warfare, a step beyond simple missile guidance systems. This was a system with strategic autonomy. It could initiate a full-scale nuclear war on its own. The men who built it believed it was a necessary evil, a tool to maintain a fragile peace through terror. They created a monster to keep other monsters at bay, but in doing so, they placed the fate of humanity into the cold, unfeeling logic of a machine. The most haunting aspect of the dead man's hand is its complete lack of a conscience. A human leader, even in the face of Armageddon, might hesitate. They might question the intelligence. They might hope for a last-minute de-escalation. They might think of the billions of lives at stake. They possess empathy, fear, and a moral compass, however flawed. A machine possesses none of these things. It operates on pure logic. It follows its programming. If the conditions are met, it will execute its command. There is no room for doubt. There is no capacity for mercy. It cannot understand the horror of its actions. It only knows that a threshold has been crossed. This raises profound ethical questions. Is it morally acceptable to delegate such a monumental decision to an algorithm? We were handing the power of global annihilation to an entity without a soul, an entity that cannot comprehend the value of what it is about to destroy. The system was designed to be rational, but its rationality was inhuman. It reduced the complex, tragic calculus of nuclear war to a simple if-then statement. If there is an attack, and if there is no one to respond, then launch the counterattack. It is a cold and brutal logic. It strips away all the nuances of human judgment. It makes the apocalypse a matter of procedure. The creators of the system put their faith in technology. They trusted that their sensors and computers would not make a mistake. But what if they were wrong? What if a series of unfortunate events, like a major earthquake combined with a communications failure, mimicked the conditions of an attack? A human might be able to recognize the anomaly. A machine would not. It would follow its programming to the letter. It would unleash hell on Earth based on a false positive. The potential for catastrophic error was immense. We were creating a system that could not be reasoned with. It could not be talked down. It was a perfect weapon in an imperfect world. The reliance on such a system also reveals a deep pessimism about humanity itself. The dead man's hand was an admission of failure. It was an admission that, in the final moments, we could not trust ourselves to act. We needed a machine to do our dirty work for us, to ensure that vengeance was served even from beyond the grave. It was a bleak worldview, one where the ultimate act of war was so terrible that it had to be outsourced to a non-human agent. We built a god of vengeance from wires and code. We gave it the power to judge the world, and we programmed it to show no mercy, a decision that would haunt us forever. The Cold War has ended, the Soviet Union is gone, but the ghost of the dead man's hand lingers. It is rumored that a modern version of the system, Perimeter, remains active in Russia. Whether this is true or not, its legacy is undeniable. The concept of automated warfare has not disappeared. In fact, it has become more prevalent than ever. We are now in an age of artificial intelligence, drone warfare, and autonomous weapons systems. The technology has advanced far beyond the simple logic gates of the 1980s. Today's systems can learn, they can adapt, they can make complex decisions on the battlefield with little or no human intervention. The questions raised by Perimeter are more relevant now than they have ever been. We see echoes of its logic in today's military technology. Automated defensive systems on naval ships can detect and destroy incoming missiles in seconds, faster than any human crew could react. Drones can be programmed to loiter over a target area and strike when certain conditions are met. Militaries around the world are investing heavily in AI. They are seeking to gain an advantage in speed and decision-making. The goal is to take the human out of the loop, to create a faster, more efficient, and more lethal fighting force. But with every step we take down this path, we move closer to the abyss that perimeter represented. We risk creating systems that we cannot fully control. The ethical dilemma remains the same. Who is responsible when an autonomous weapon makes a mistake? Who is held accountable when an AI algorithm misidentifies a target and kills civilians? Is it the programmer, the commander who deployed the system, or is it no one? This is the danger of creating weapons that operate beyond direct human oversight. We are creating a diffusion of responsibility, a situation where everyone can claim they were just following the system's logic. It is a dangerous precedent. It erodes the moral and legal frameworks that are supposed to govern warfare. It makes war colder, more distant, and more terrifying. The haunting idea of technology surpassing human control is no longer science fiction. It is a genuine strategic concern. The dead man's hand was a primitive version of this nightmare, a system built from Cold War paranoia. But it was a warning, a sign of things to come. As we continue to develop smarter and more autonomous systems, we must remember the lessons of the past. We must ask ourselves where to draw the line. How much power are we willing to give to our creations? The dead man's hand was designed to have the last word in a global conflict. We must ensure that in the future, the final decision to act always, and without exception, remains in human hands.